What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Vault Pro Scooters. Today, you guys are joining me for another episode of What's New in Scootering. Today, we're gonna be taking a look at all of the brand new Ethic product, the long-awaited Merrow V3 fork, Pandemonium V2 deck, Tenacity V2 bars, and a ton of other stuff. Kinda. But either way, we're gonna be getting into it, diving into all the specs, breaking everything down for you guys, and hopefully making you more aware of the latest and greatest scooter parts in the world. So, let's get into it. First product of today's What's New is gonna actually be a brand new Fender from our boys over at Ethic. You guys can see in my hand is the brand new Ethic V2 Fender. If you're unaware, Ethic did have a Fender before. It was the Ethic brakeless pad, I believe. It was just your typical Ethic Fender, but it's been around for a while, didn't really work with bigger wheels, wasn't really compatible with some of the other decks, and it was just a matter of time before Ethic would release a brand new updated version of the Fender, which is this guy right here. You guys can see this is your standard Ethic Fender, but it's really refined down. It looks similar to the brakeless pad, but updated, and it's made out of the hard nylon. I'm sure there's a metal insert inside there as well, but very, very sleek Fender. And this guy will work with pretty much all Ethic decks. The mounting system that Ethic does through the bottom of the deck is still here. The Fender even has these cutouts here to help you align it when you're putting this brake on Ethic decks. There's actually little ridges underneath the deck that allow you to slide these rails through. It's really sick. You guys should be able to ride this Ethic Fender on at least the last couple generations of Ethic decks. So your Vulcane decks, Vulcane Box, Lindworm V3, Lindworm V2. I believe this will even work on decks prior to that, but I'm not 100% sure. So I'm gonna say at least for the last couple generations, you're good to go, including the brand new decks that I'm about to show you. If you guys are interested in getting a new Ethic Fender for your Ethic deck, this guy's like 10 bucks and it'll be a nice addition to your scooter. All right, Fender out of the way, let's move on to the forks. And this time around, Ethic has actually released 2 new forks. So let's start with the first one, the Merrow V3. The Merrow V3, as you can see, is a very, very slimmed down, refined fork. This thing is made for purpose. It is made to be lightweight. It is made to be strong. And as you can tell, the Merrow V3 does not come compatible with larger wheels. It doesn't feature compatibility for bigger wheels because it is aiming to be as light as possible. And if you want a very light scooter, probably not riding bigger wheels anyways, so it's not geared towards you. But the Merrow V3 does improve on the Merrow V2 in a lot of ways, especially when it comes to weight. Before I tell you how much it weighs, let's quickly talk specs. The Merrow V3 is compatible with up to 120mm wheels, no wider than 24mm, like I mentioned earlier. This fork does actually come in 3 different compressions. I'm holding the HIC model, so you can see it says HIC here at the top. It also comes in an SCS model and an IHC model. So the only difference between the 3 models of fork is really the compression that you're intending to ride with it. The SCS model comes with a steered tube that's a little bit longer for SCS. The HIC comes with one that's a little bit shorter. And then the IHC model, that you'll see in a sec, is refined down to be compatible with IHC compression. However, the specs of the fork don't change. Wheel compatibility, the only thing that's really changing is the compatibility that it's made for. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. So we talked compression, we talked specs and compatibility, but let's talk about one change on this fork, and actually all of the Ethic products that I kind of touched up on in the lightest custom build, but I think is very important for you guys, and that is these axles. The axle themselves don't look like they have changed, but the tool that you need to work on this fork has changed. You guys can see right here on your normal scooter fork, this would be a 5 or a 6mm Allen wrench, but not anymore. Ethic has decided to remove the Allen wrench and add a Torx wrench. So you guys can see this is a Torx star wrench. I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sorry. This is what you will be using now to tighten up all of your Ethic products. When you buy one of the new Ethic forks or the deck, it will come with this Torx wrench, but you cannot use a normal Allen wrench on this fork. So when you get it, you need to make sure to use this tool. You also need to make sure not to throw this tool away or lose it, because you will not be able to tighten your fork or deck if you don't have it. You can see we got Torx on one side. If I flip it over, there's actually a little clip here that allows the axle to thread in, so you only do need one tool to tighten up this fork, as long as you have the right tool. Either way, very, very slim, very, very sleek, and very, very light. Let's talk colors. As you guys can see, I'm holding the matte black version here. Very, very nice. I'm a big fan of the black fork. It also comes in a blue chrome, and we also have a raw. So black, blue chrome in raw, SCS compression, HIC compression, or IHC compression, 110 by 24 mil wheels. What more can you really ask for? Also, now that I'm holding the IHC model of the fork, you guys can see it says IHC here at the top, and you can see how the fork tube actually slims down here at the top, allowing you to ride IHC compression and fit standard size bars over the fork and shim once it's all installed. I'll put all three in front. As you can see, there's a height difference in the steer tubes because these are all made for specific compressions. So SCS here at the shortest, then you got the HIC, and then you got the IHC. Like I said, everything else on the fork is pretty much exactly the same. Enough rambling, let's weigh all three versions of the Ethic Merrow V3 so you guys at home know exactly what this fork weighs. Oh my gosh, I almost dropped the scale. First up, IHC. IHC model weighs 6.9 ounces. Next up, HIC. Oh, 6.3 ounces, which means we can weigh the SCS fork, and I'm gonna tell you right now, just watch. Ready? 6.1 ounces. And I'm gonna tell you, we just did the lightest custom build. We didn't have the Merrow V3 at that time, but the Merrow V3, specifically the SCS version that I'm holding right here, is now 100% the lightest fork in the world. Right here. This is the lightest fork in the world now. It is lighter than a Circa 3.
12 seconds later.
All right, we're doing it. Just because I don't want to hear anybody in the comments. Aztec, Circa 3 fork. Let's take out this compression bolt. Circa 3 fork, the latest and the greatest from Aztec. 6.5 ounces, right? That's light. SCS Merrow V3. 6.1 ounces, making the Merrow V3 the lightest fork in the world. But no shame to the Circa 3, beautiful fork. We have crowned a new champion when it comes to being the lightest fork in the world, and it is the Merrow V3. Also, just found out the Torx wrench that comes with the new Ethic products that you need to tighten the Torx bolts is sold separately, so we sell it. If you lose it, we sell it, just so you know. That is everything we have to say about the Ethic Merrow V3 fork. Once again, lightest fork in the world. If you guys are interested in buying one for yourself, the link will be down below. All right, Merrow is out of the way. Let's move on to the second new Ethic fork of this video. And if I mispronounce it, I'm sorry. But let's talk about the all new Ethic Heracles? Either way, if I mispronounce it, I'm sorry. But this is Ethic's brand new 12 standard big boy fork, if you will. If the Merrow is the fork that's only compatible with 24mm wheels and is made to be as light as possible, then this is its big brother, because this guy comes with a 12 standard axle, and as you can tell, this thing is made to ride the bigger wheels. However, let's talk about specs of the brand new Ethic fork. I mentioned wheel compatibility, the Heracles? Okay, so since I cannot pronounce the name of this fork, I'm just gonna call it the Ethic H fork for this video, but hopefully you guys will know what I'm talking about. So, the Ethic H fork is compatible with 125mm wheels by 12 standard, so you can only ride 30mm width as long as they're 12 standard, because you need this big boy axle. Inside the box, you will have 24mm axle as well as 24mm conversion spacers, so it's pretty much sticking to the same compatibility that Ethic has had on their larger forks before, which is either 12 standard or 24mm. There are no spacers to make this fork compatible with non-12 standard 30mm wheels, which I really hope we see in the future. But you can ride either 24mm wheels or 12 standard wheels all the way up to 125mm. So you can definitely get some big wheels on this fork, which is pretty sweet. When it comes to material for the H fork, we're looking at 4130 chromoly steel, making this a steel Ethic fork. And if you guys don't know what steel means more weight, but also more strength. So it's get and give. You're gonna have a heavier fork, but you also have a stronger fork. So depending on the type of rider that you are, this might fit your needs. Either way, it's not that heavy. I'm holding it. We'll weigh it in a sec, but it's very interesting to know that Ethic decided to make a steel fork. They definitely wanted to offer something just flat out made for riders that are looking for strength, and I appreciate that. I showed you guys on the Merrow V3, you do have to use the brand new Torx wrench to tighten up everything. However, on the H fork, it does look like it's still just your standard 6mm Allen wrench, which is pretty cool, in case you guys were wondering. The H fork does come two colors. First color up is actually named after my favorite Netflix show. It's Black Mirror. This is Ethic's version of a black chrome or more of a trans black. It's also just a glossy black. It's however you want to interpret it, but Black Mirror, great color. And the fork also comes in raw or chrome. This is raw, this is chrome or polished. But this is definitely raw and this is definitely chrome or polished. But Ethic is calling it raw, so that's what we're gonna call it. The H fork also comes in raw if you want that more loud, chrome, flashy colorway. If you're not a big fan of the black, same exact fork though, same exact specs. Everything else is exactly the same. You're just looking at a different color. Regardless, those are the two colorways it comes in, but since this is a steel fork, I know some of you guys wanna know how much it weighs, so let's do it. Come on, scale. All right, let's weigh it. 12.2 ounces. So this 4130 chromoly steel Ethic fork actually still weighs less than a pound, and it comes with a 12 standard axle on it. If you guys are in the market for a fork that you know is gonna hold up to everything you throw at it and it's not gonna budge, you guys should definitely be checking out the brand new Ethic
Heracles
fork. Link is down below. Either way, Heracles fork is out of the way. Let's move into the brand new Ethic Tenacity V2 bar. So, Ethic Tenacity V2 bar. If you were unaware, the Tenacity V1 bar along with the Ethic Trianon bar were very, very popular. Not only were they aftermarket T-bars from Ethic, which a lot of people were waiting for, they were actually lighter than a lot of the other bars on the market, and they were about half the price of most of the other bars on the market. So, no surprise, Ethic decided to revamp the Tenacity V2, and that is what I'm holding in my hands today. Visually, you guys might not see too many differences between the Ethic Tenacity V1 and the Ethic Tenacity V2. However, there are a lot of improvements, and let's talk about it. So, reading from Ethic's website, this is what it says. The Tenacity V2 retains all of the qualities that made the V1 bar so successful. The Tenacity V2 is actually 25% stronger in the welding area, which is a huge improvement from the previous bar. I mean, 25% stronger is a big number. And it is actually 70 grams lighter than the previous bar because of different butted methods. If you guys don't know what butted is, I don't know what butted is, but I know that butted is something that they do in the bar to make it stronger, and they can make these walls on the inside of the bar thinner, so you have less material. Then they have all these other measures that allow the bar to still be very strong. So Tenacity V2 is 25% stronger than the Tenacity V1 and 70 grams lighter. Those are big numbers. Those are definitely improvements from the previous bar, and I'm happy that Ethic is stating those and making us aware of those differences. But when it comes to specs, the Tenacity V2 has changed a little bit. When it comes to width, we're looking at 23.6 inches wide, and the Tenacity V2 actually comes in 3 different heights. First up is 26.4 inches tall, 28.4 inches tall, or 30.4 inches tall. Regardless of what height you get, the width of 23.6 is gonna stay no matter what, but depending on how tall you are, and if you don't wanna cut your bars down, you can just pick whatever size is the closest to your desired bar height. Tenacity V2 is still oversized. It does come with a pre-installed slit, so you guys can ride HIC compression right out of the box. You guys do also get a bar sleeve included with the Ethic bar, so if you don't wanna ride HIC and you wanna ride the full height of the bar in SCS, you can slap that bar sleeve in and you'll be good to go to ride SCS. Colors for the Ethic Tenacity V2. Once again, favorite Netflix show, we got Black Mirror here. You got this nice glossy black colorway. We also have raw, so this is your traditional raw. I love that you can see the heat marks around the welds, the Tenacity stamp here in the bar. So if you guys want a raw bar, here you go. And finally, you have your traditional matte black. Same stamp, same specs, same sizes, but you guys can choose between matte black, Black Mirror, or raw, depending on which one will suit your scooter's color scheme the best. And that is pretty much all we have to say about the Tenacity V2. Once again, lighter and stronger than the V1 bar, and they are in stock right now here at the Vault Pro Scooters. Links are down below. All right, well, let's move into the segment of this video that I know most of you guys are probably here for, and that is the decks. Let's take a look at the brand new Ethic Pandemonium V2 deck. Okay, well, here it is, guys. Like I said, Pandemonium V2, very, very anticipated, long awaited, and it is better in every way than I could have possibly expected. Crash course on the Pandemonium, just in case you don't know. The Pandemonium deck has been around for like 9 years or something like that. It has maintained its reputation for being the lightest deck in the world and also one of the best design decks in the world. I mean, hey, if you can put out a deck and it can last 9 years at the top, I think that means that what you have made is one of a kind and that you nailed it. So when we knew that they were gonna be making a Pandemonium V2, we didn't really know what to expect. They already made the lightest deck that we know is strong, that all the riders love. How could they make it any better? They did it, guys, they did it. It's right here in my hands. Pandemonium V2. The lightest deck in the world. So the Merrow V3 is the lightest fork in the world. The Pandemonium V2 is the lightest deck in the world. And if you don't believe me, go watch the lightest custom build. It's right there, go watch it. But let's talk about what they refined. They did actually make the Pandemonium V2 lighter than the previous model. They actually made the Pandemonium smaller in some cases. We actually have a smaller length version now than we ever have before. So the Pandemonium V2 comes 5 inches wide, and it actually has 3 different length options. The first one is the smallest, 18.1 inches long. Next up is 19.7 inches long. And finally, the last one is 21.3 inches long. So you guys can choose between the 3 different lengths to determine which one is the best for you. If you want the lightest deck in the world, you're gonna have to go for that 18.1. But if you're not too worried, you can bump up to any of the other sizes and they might serve you a little bit better. Wheel compatibility for the Pandemonium V2 is 120 millimeter wheels by 24 millimeter wheels. I know that we were hoping that the Pandemonium was gonna be compatible with bigger wheels, and at least we can ride larger wheels in the sense of bumping up to 120s, because if you guys did not know, the Pandemonium V1 was only compatible with 110 millimeter by 24 millimeter wheels, just like the Apex decks as well. But at least they did update the Pandemonium V2 to ride larger wheels. However, you are still limited to that 24 millimeter wheel width. Like I said, this deck is made for park riders. It is made to be as light as possible, and they're not really trying to account for you guys wanting to ride larger wheels. They're trying to account for what you guys want to make this deck as light as possible. So unfortunately, you can't ride bigger wheels, but that's no big deal. Another cool thing is that the Pandemonium V2 comes with the brand new Fender pre-installed on the deck. Instead of just getting your Ethic brake, you actually get the Ethic Fender on this. So I like the idea of mainstreaming Fenders and brakes, and to be honest, I think brakes do more damage to people's scooters and their wheels than it actually does to actually stop them. If you need to stop, you can just put your foot on the ground. You don't need to slam on your brake and give your wheel a bunch of flat spots. So the concept of putting fenders on a lot of scooters now it's something that I like. I like the idea of it. You just need it there to block your foot. You don't really need it to stop. Another thing that I want to notate here on the back end, like I mentioned earlier, is all the axles are Torx wrench. So these are not your normal 6mm Allen. These are the torque wrench that comes in the box with the deck, so do not lose it. And on the other side, just like the Merrow V3 fork, you don't have another part of the axle. You actually have a little clip here that the axle threads into. So you only need one tool to tighten and loosen this deck. Here's the bottom of the Ethic Pandemonium V2. You guys can see this large cutout here to reduce weight. I love that they stuck with the same Pandemonium artwork. I think it's the best artwork for this deck, and I like that they didn't redo it. They just kept with the classic. You can see a brake bolt here in the bottom. It is good to note that the brake bolt on these is Torx as well. Something that I actually just noticed is the fender on the Pandemonium V2 is a torque wrench. As you guys can see, that bolt right there is Torx, right? But the aftermarket fender that I just grabbed isn't Torx. It's actually a 6mm. if you guys can see that. So if you buy the brand new Ethic Fender on its own, you're good with an Allen wrench. But if you buy the brand new deck and it comes with the Fender, you're gonna need Torx. Interesting. Moving on to the head tube of the Pandemonium V2. As you guys can see, the head tube still resembles the Pandemonium head tube that we all know and love, except it has been refined. You can see at the bottom where the head tube meets the deck, there are these cutouts here. You can see here on the front of the deck, it says Pandemonium V2. It also says Ethic here in the little crease. Really, really cool how they managed to get all that text in the material. You can see some cutouts here, some indents. There's a lot of cutouts. Once again, this deck is going for lightweight, so wherever they can cut weight and save weight, they're gonna remove that material. Either way, I think it makes for a beautiful looking deck. That's pretty much all there is to say about the Pandemonium V2. When it comes to colors, there are 3 that you guys can choose from. First up is black, which I'm holding right now. Traditional matte black, most popular color in the original Pandemonium, so I'm interested to see if it will be in this one. Next up is raw. So if you guys are a fan of the Pandemonium V2, but you don't want black, you guys can go for the raw. And the last colorway that the Pandemonium V2 comes in is actually blue chrome, just like the fork I showed you. So it's this deck, but in this color. I'll have Ruben here throw up some B-roll that we took of the lightest custom build of the deck so you guys can see it. Unfortunately, we are sold out of it right now, but it'll come back in stock at some point. Black and raw are in stock, however, blue chrome isn't. And I don't actually have all 3 sizes of the Pandemonium V2 in front of me to weigh, so I'm not gonna be weighing all 3, but since I have the smallest size in front of me, let's go ahead and weigh it, and hopefully that will satisfy you guys. Lightest version of the Pandemonium V2 weighs 1 pound, 15.4 ounces, making it the lightest deck in the world, like I mentioned earlier. But Pandemonium V2 is finally here, now available, so go get them before they're gone, because you guys will regret it when they're gone. If you guys don't get one now, I don't know when you're gonna be able to get it, so act fast. Well, so tell me this, what if you are a rider who really likes the Pandemonium, right? It's lightweight, it looks good, all your friends have it, but maybe you're kind of phasing out of that park era of your riding. Maybe you're starting to experiment with some grinds and some rails, and you want a box deck, but you want the Pandemonium. You could get the Vulcan, you can get the Lindworm, but maybe you want everything that makes the Pandemonium. You just wish it was boxed, right? Guys, I'm not making it up, it's here, it's here. This right here is the Ethic Pandemonium V2 boxed deck. So this deck is this deck, but boxed. So take everything great about this deck, but put squared ends on it. Huh? That sounds like the perfect scooter deck, right? I mean, if you're a hybrid rider, it would be exactly what you're looking for. So let's talk specs. Pandemonium V2 boxed comes 5.5 inches wide. It does also come in 3 different lengths, just like the Pandemonium V2. You guys can choose between 19.7 inches long, 21.3 inches long, or 22.8 inches long. So 5.5 inches wide by all 3 of those lengths, allowing you guys to find the perfect fit for you. Moving on to the back of the Pandemonium V2 box, this is where the bread and the butter is. As you guys can see, this deck features aluminum dropouts wrapping around the fully squared boxed end version of this deck. And in case any of you guys are curious why anybody would want a boxed end deck, the real reason is for specific styles of tricks, whether it's grinds or stalls. Having these boxed ends gives you more surface to grind, more surface to stall, and essentially just more room to utilize when you're actually doing those tricks. So if you're doing, let's say, a 5-0 grind, you have all of this space right here to actually use, where if you guys had a non-boxed end deck, look at, there's like no room here to do 5-0 stalls. So essentially having a boxed end deck just makes those style of tricks a little bit easier. And if you are gonna start expanding into those styles of tricks, you probably should get a boxed end deck. On the bottom of the deck, you can see that the deck ends actually are curved. They're not just fully square and angled. They actually smooth out and they curve around. So if you guys are doing tricks like 5-0s, it's gonna just slide around and grind perfectly. You're not gonna have any hard edges where it's gonna get caught or stuck on, which is really nice. The axle on the Pandemonium V2 boxed is a Torx wrench. I just confirmed it, so you do need that Torx wrench to tighten up this guy. Moving on to the bottom of the deck, you guys can see it's very similar to the smaller one. You still have this very, very large teardrop-like cutout with the original Pandemonium graphic there, except it says 2. You still have the same brake mounting, fender is the same as well on this deck. If we look at the head tube, we still have the same cutouts in the head tube as well, along with the Ethic logo. And you guys can also see that they welded on ends here at the front of the deck to give the deck more surface for crook grinds, nose blunt stalls, anything that really relates to the front end of the deck. You can see that there's a little bit more surface here added on to give you all the space that you need. Very, very flat deck, very, very light deck, and I truly cannot believe that I'm holding a boxed Pandemonium deck in 2023. That's crazy. When it comes to wheel compatibility for the V2 box deck, you guys are looking at up to 120 millimeter wheels by 24 mil again. So the V2 box deck shares the same wheel compatibility as the normal Pandemonium V2 deck. Will we see expansion for bigger wheels in the future? I don't know. But if you guys want an Ethic deck and you want to ride bigger wheels, go pick up a Vulcan or a Lindworm and you'll be good to go. But if you want the Pandemonium, you're going for lightweight, so you are limited to only riding 24 mil wheels. When it comes to color, this deck does come in 2 different colors. First up is black. Very, very nice matte black. Smooth, looks great. Silver accents here where it says the name of the deck and the graphic here on the bottom. Next up is raw. So same exact deck, just in raw. All the cutouts, all the etching, everything is exactly the same. We're just looking at the raw version. Comment down below, what color deck would you ride? Black or raw? Because we're curious, we wanna know. I would ride black, but I wanna know how many of you guys would ride raw. So if you would ride this deck in this color, let me know down below. Well, that is all I have to say about this deck. Once again, I cannot believe that it's real. And if you guys can't believe it's real, go buy one and let me know how it feels, because I can only imagine that this deck feels like an absolute dream. That is it for this episode of What is New in Scootering. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys are updated on all the new Ethic product. I know a lot of you guys were waiting for it and we're happy to finally be showing it to you. The links for everything will be down below. Make sure to shop TheVaultProScooters for all of your scooter needs. And until the next episode, have a good one.